Well, it's state basketball time of the year. Yeah, we love it. And it starts with the opening round of all the state boys and basketball tournaments. And so we're going to be scattered all around, but you're going to be hunkered down in Camas for 4 games that we're going to have out there. And this might be one of my favorite weekends of the year.
Yeah, this weekend, really this whole 3-week stretch, starting with kind of that district round coinciding often with MAC Classic, and then from there it's kind of a race to the finish over those 3 weeks. And this weekend in particular is great because, you know, the brackets have been seeded by now. We know who's playing who, and it's just time to roll out the balls and see what happens. So it's awesome.
Well, you mentioned MAC Classic. I am fresh off of MAC Classic, 2 incredibly busy days, but rewarding days. Congratulations to all the wrestlers that competed so well, including, I think, 11 that won state titles. And so, just fabulous performances by everybody up there. But that clears the way for basketball, and that's the only sport we have going remaining in the winter season here, starting with the regional round at various sites before teams punch their ticket to the Tacoma Dome for 4A, 3A, and the Yakima Valley Sun Dome for 2A and 1A. So some teams have actually already punched their tickets. Right. If we have a handful that are seated in the top 8, regardless of what happens this weekend, they will be moving on to the final site. But nevertheless, it is still incredibly important for those teams' championship and trophy aspirations that they get a win this weekend, because that will punch their ticket to the quarterfinals and make it so they avoid a loser-out game in the round of 12 on Wednesday. And so let's start with the 4As, why don't we?
Yeah, let's do it. You want to do boys or girls first?
Let's go with girls, okay, because I think one of the more scintillating storylines happens to be the Union girls, and they are the number 2 seed, but all eyes are on Brooklyn Haywood. She chases the all-time state scoring record. Brooklyn Haywood, the Oregon-bound senior, currently ranks number 3 on the state scoring list. She is just 9 points short of Jennifer Stinson for number 2, Stinson, who played at Davenport. So if Haywood puts up one of her normal 30-point games this weekend, she will move into number 2, but that will put her within striking distance of the all-time career scoring leader. Of course, that's Haley Van Lith of Kashmir. As we record this, Brooklyn is 121 points shy of Haley Van Lith. And assuming the Titans play 4 games in the state tournament, and as a number 2 seed, that is definitely a possibility, she would need to average 30.25 points per game. And that's about what she does. So right, we could be talking about a new all-time state scoring leader when the tournament wraps up.
Yeah, and it's exciting that it will probably come down to one of those final couple games, coinciding with kind of the biggest stage at the Tacoma Dome. I think over these 4 years, it's something that's kind of been talked about that was a possibility and kind of a goal of hers. But, I think I was, a little skeptical of like, could this really happen? But the way that she has really kicked it into gear this year, and even with kind of a deeper roster than years past, it looks like it's very much in reach for her. And man, that would be quite a story if she could not only knock it off, but the Titans are playing, in a high stakes game and potentially a semifinal or state championship game.
Well, yeah, it's the number 2 seed. I mean, the Titans come in firing on all cylinders. I mean, they haven't lost, I think, since the holiday tournament over in Franklin in Portland, and they'll face number 7 Bothell. That the game is that's on Saturday, right?
Yeah, I believe that's the first of 2 on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they'll get a test right out of the but I mean they're battle tested in the way that they rolled through the bi-district tournament, capturing the first bi-district title in program history.
Yeah, won their 4 bi-district games by an average of 27 points. That is pretty rare to see, and that included a 31-point win in the championship game over Kennedy Catholic, and I believe that was a game that they trailed by a few points in the second quarter, and then really just turned it around, flipped a switch, pulled away in the third quarter. I think Brooklyn Haywood had like 7 3-pointers or something. So yeah, just the way that they have kind of rolled through, like you said, has been really impressive. And I think it'd be great to see them potentially match up with Davis later on. I think that's kind of the matchup that everybody wants to see, especially since both teams played Tualatin earlier in the season, like you mentioned. And so that's really exciting. And Bothell, I mean, as a 7 seed, who knows what could happen? But the fact that Union gets to open as a 2 seed, open close to home, it's a pretty good way to set things up for them to start.
Yeah, and I think what's impressive about the Titans is Brooklyn gets her points. We've already that's been the case every year that she's been there, but they've had players step into key roles. So you think like Mila Larry, who's kind of a little bit of do everything and a defensive menace, but can still score. And then you have the hot shooting freshman Aaliyah Smith, who is able to get hot and provide a secondary scoring option. So it's not like teams can anymore just clamp down on Brooklyn, but even when they do, she seems to score 30 every night.
Yeah, it's really crazy. It just seems like no team has been able to find a defensive solution to stop her, and it really just is a testament to how good of a ball handler and just creator she is. And it's impressive to watch. And again, like I said, the way they rolled through by districts like that is just, you don't see that a lot. Even a team like Camas a couple years ago, they might play a close game or two every now and then, but Union has been on an absolute tear lately.
All right. Well, the state title journey, they hope, gets started on Saturday up at Camas. And speaking of Camas and speaking of a top flight recruit, the Camas boys kick off on Friday night. They're the number 12 seed against number 13 Woodinville. And Camas is, of course, led by Ethan Harris, the Iowa-bound 6'8" senior, who is one of the more impressive boys players to come through the area in recent memory.
Right. The big story there, obviously, is that he seemed to re-aggravate his ankle injury in the semifinals against Emerald Ridge. So that's obviously something to keep an eye on. You would hope that with, a little bit more than a week to prepare for this game, that hopefully they can manage that and he'll be able to go and be impactful on Friday. They managed it obviously down the stretch, but and then the other part really is just the fact that most of the rest of their roster is kind of unproven on the state stage. So this is really a big opportunity for some people to kind of make a name for themselves. I feel like this round in particular, I can just think of so many memorable games over the years where, somebody will come out of nowhere and, hit a game-winning shot or just have this amazing performance. So there's an opportunity in front of them to really do something special here. And they get to play in their home gym, which is really cool too.
Yeah, it's almost like a great situation for a Camas team that, like you said, is sort of, dealt with Ethan's injury and had players go into their roles. Well, they get to be favored in their home gym. Granted, it's a loser out game,
right.
But it's almost like a great way to enter a state tournament setting by having the comfort level be pretty high there.
Absolutely. And they've Ethan at least has been in this now 4 years. They've gone to state all those 4 years, and I think every year outside of, I want to say last year, has been a loser out, and they have gotten to Tacoma every one of those times. So they have that track record, obviously. And, Scott Thompson, their first-year coach, obviously has no shortage of big game experience. So I think that bodes well also. But Woodinville is a solid team. We actually saw them come through here for the Mountain View holiday invite back in December, and they won that. I saw them match up with Columbia River and really just overpowered them with their size and athleticism. And they're not a team to be slept on, obviously. So should be an interesting game. But I'm really excited for that one. So yeah.
All right, enjoy it out in Camas this weekend for sure.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
All right, one team that is not going to be close to home opening the state tournament is the Prairie boys. For the second straight year, Prairie gets to make the long trip to Spokane. And while the Falcons hope history repeats in one way, because last year when the Falcons went to Spokane as a number 17 seed, they ended up winning, beating Central Valley to reach the round of 16. Well, the Prairie is in a much better position this year. They are a number 6 seed, having already punched their ticket to the Tacoma Dome, but they will go on the road to face number 3 seed Mount Spokane with a berth in the the quarterfinals on the line. That happens Saturday across the state. And Prairie comes in, I think, a really interesting team, basically led by their depth and the star power of Carson Morningstar.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's they've done this before. And so that Spokane trip, and I think just kind of knowing that they have something to fall back on and knowing they will go to the Tacoma Dome no matter what is big for them. They'll be making their first trip there since 2019. I covered them actually Friday in their district championship win over Mountain View. I was really impressed just with their overall ball movement and just kind of sharing the ball. You'll often hear Coach Jimmy Tuominen on the sideline yelling one more, like kind of to let them know, like to make at least another pass or two before putting a shot up. I feel like they, like I said, share the ball really well, and to have the ability to go inside to a matchup nightmare like Carson Morningstar, that's great to have. But then to have just the bevy of shooting options around him with Malachi Patton and Ben Nkansa, Jameer Jones, Tavin Timperley, Peyton Poppy, and the list goes on. It's a really deep group, like you said, and I think that they could definitely make some noise in this tournament. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. But of course, Mount Spokane is a tough team to start with.
Well, yeah, Mount Spokane, they rolled through. I mean, the Spokane area is pretty tough when it comes to hoops, and Mount Spokane rolled through their district tournament, winning every game by a minimum of 15 points. But Prairie has some program history within its grasp with a win this weekend, or even a win in the round of 12. If they don't get that win, they would reach the quarterfinals for the first time since the 2006-2007 season. Wow. So this is a window for Prairie to make some noise.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think they really opened our eyes, I think, with them sweeping the 4A GSHL earlier this year. That's not something you see a lot from a 3A team, and they've scheduled really tough this year. So I think you hope that kind of bodes well for them at this point in the year, and they're kind of battle tested. So really, really interested to see what they can do. And the 3A is always really, really tough, but I think they have a really good opportunity in front of them. Yeah,
because they made a point instead of traveling, way out of the area during the holidays, they went up and took on some tough competition in a Tacoma tournament. And right. I think that not only helped them kind of get used to making that trip and playing games sort of against teams of the similar caliber that they'll be facing in the state tournament, it probably also helped their seeding a little bit.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that too, because I think we were all kind of waiting to see like how that would look with all the 3As just staying in District 4 this year, not doing the by-district tournament. And it was good to see both Prairie and the Evergreen girls still get a top 8 seed and still get, a certain level of respect for winning their district. And yeah, I think no doubt like Prairie, they even got seeded higher than Bellevue, which was a team that actually beat them at their place earlier. So I think that they got a lot of respect in the way they were seeded, and like you said, I'm sure that had a lot to do with just the really tough non-league schedule they played.
Before we go to Evergreen girls, who I definitely want to talk to, I want to make a quick aside because the 3A boys tournament is going to be nuts this year, and you get to be there and you get to soak it all in. But with Rainier Beach, obviously the number 1 seed, and Tyrone Stokes, the number 1 recruit in the nation, it's going to be a spectacle there. It reminds me of a while back when Nathan Hale and Michael Porter Jr. were coming through, and during that weekend, and especially that Saturday of the state title game, that whole side of the boys' side of the dome was just packed to the rafters. It was just an absolute scene. And I've already had give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. I've had multiple people reach out to me and say, hey, I'm a content creator. I run this website. I've been denied credentials because the demand is so high. Can I work for you guys? And I've had to politely tell them no, but it's just everyone wants to be in that building to see the elite level of talent that is going to be on display with Tyrone Stokes and Rainier Beach.
Yeah, like we talked about before recording today, like I was there a few years ago when Garfield was playing in the 3A boys and girls championships actually, but the boys game kind of had a similar feel of just like a ton of media on the sideline, obviously, and it was obviously somewhat of a spectacle, but obviously no player near the caliber of a Tyrone Stokes on that roster, so that's going to be something else, and yeah, looking forward to seeing what that's like, obviously.
All right. Well, hopefully Prairie can hang around for the duration and be a part. And who knows, maybe you never know what paths happen in those brackets. That would be something to try against the best.
Yeah, I mean, I looked it up. They could potentially face off in the semifinals. They are on the same side of the bracket, so who knows? We'll see. Crazier things have happened.
All right. We talked about program history being in grasp for Prairie boys. That is also the case with the Evergreen girls. Number 7 seed, just obviously Camora Ross and some of the depth and some of the way they've been able to kind of gel as a roster as the season's gone along. Evergreen, even with a loss this weekend, and they have a tough task on the road against number 2 Snohomish, but Evergreen's punched their ticket to the Tacoma Dome for just the 3rd time in program history and the first time since the 2010-2011 season. Obviously, this is a breakthrough year for the Plainsmen and something that they can hang their hats on with a lot of pride.
Absolutely, and I think that 2011 team just made it to regionals, so I don't even think that team made it to Tacoma. So this to even get to Tacoma is huge for this program. And you talked about Camora Ross. I think it's really kind of a cool story that she gets to close out her career playing at the Tacoma Dome, and she was really the centerpiece of this program turnaround, starting from her freshman year when the Plainsmen won their first league title in like 43 years or something, and they clinched a state berth 2 years ago. I think they fell in that round of 20 games, so to already have that further seed locked up is massive. And yeah, I think it's really impressive just how fast everything came together for them with 3 important transfers in Harmony Fallon and Miley Thompson and Amaya Pascal, and I think at least one, if not 2 of them, had to sit the first 8 games of the year, so that's a lot of time they're kind of making up for, but it came together fast for them. I think their 1 through 8 is as good as anybody in the area, and if not even further out statewide. So yeah, it's really exciting to see what they can do as well. Like you mentioned, the Snohomish matchup is going to be tough. They've won 16 straight since starting the season 0-4, so they're clearly on a hot streak right now. And to be fair, Evergreen hasn't been super tested within the district and its league in a little while, but now they have an opportunity to see how their game travels and how they stack up against some statewide competition.
Well, I made a point to go out to Evergreen at the end of their league season because I wanted to write something on Camora just because she's been such a dynamic and impactful player all 4 years. And it was great because Evergreen only has 2 seniors and really only Camora plays regularly. So
right.
Evergreen kind of turned it into a Camora Ross appreciation night. And yeah. I left that gym with a whole new appreciation of what Camora does, not only from a scoring standpoint, but how good of a defender she is.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was a really cool night and just kind of paying tribute to her. And, the head coach, Dexter Lesore, has known her, I think, since like grade school. And, it was kind of felt like kind of a full circle thing to really celebrate her. And not only that, but, looked like she might have an injury that was going to keep her out maybe for a little while. Thankfully, it was just a knee sprain, so she came back fairly quickly from that. But really a good way to kind of wrap up a career, and hopefully it's a long run for the Plainsmen.
Hey, so we recorded this episode on Tuesday afternoon, but I wanted to break in to make a late edition for a team that has reached the round of 16 in the 3A boys tournament, and that is the Mountain View Thunder. Congratulations, Mountain View, on winning your round of 20 game on the road against Snohomish on Tuesday night. And the Thunder advanced to play Auburn Mountain View in the round of 16. It's the Thunder are a 17 seed against number 9 seed Auburn Mountain View. That will be at Auburn High. And I think the thing that kind of stands out to me about Mountain View is their ability to win close games recently, most notably against Evergreen in the district tournament. Mountain View is the number 17 seed, extends their season, and will look to advance to the round of 12 if they can survive a loser out game on the road. And given Mountain View's recent clutch play, I wouldn't put it past them.
All right. Let's go to the 2As. I want to start with the number 16 seed girls, the number 16 seed Ridgefield girls, to be specific, because they've won 8 of their last 9 games after starting just 5-11. That included 3 loser out games in the district tournament. The Spudders face number 9 Fife at noon on Saturday up at the University of Puget Sound, my alma mater. So I'm going to make my return trip to the field house where I did not play basketball. You could probably tell. But anyway, regardless of what happens this weekend, I think it's just worth giving a tip of the cap to the Spudders in the way they turned around their season, the grit they showed in surviving those loser out games in the district tournament, and just getting to this point is an amazing feat for Ridgefield.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've done it now 2 years in a row. Last year it was a 0-8 start, and then they were able to turn around and still get to state. It was interesting. I had a conversation with somebody up in Longview mid-season. I was covering a 2A GSHL girls game up there, and the topic came up of just how tough the 2A District 4 tournament was going to be this year with only 3 allocations, and especially on the girls' side where you can pretty much pencil in WF West. Then Mark Morris obviously won the 2A GSHL, so that left just 3 spots to the rest of the EVCO, and then River, Woodland, Ridgefield, 3 teams who made state last year. And Ridgefield comes out of it all having finished 4th in the 2A GSHL, but really they've just found a way now for 2 years in a row to play their best basketball at this moment. I remember after covering that game on Saturday, they won against River. A quote that stuck out to me from Madison Ingham, their junior, one of their juniors, was that they play with no fear. And at this time of the year, I feel like that really, for them, makes a big difference, and so yeah, for them to get to this point is great for the program, and I don't know, we'll see what happens, but like I wrote in my story from the weekend, like you can't really bet against this team even when they have long odds, so who knows what happens on Saturday.
Yeah, they're going to go into that game Saturday like elimination game, loser out. We've been here before. Is this their first time? No, it's like we're grizzled veterans when it comes to this.
Yeah, and I feel like they're just playing with house money at this point, like, and they get to enjoy, a trip up north, and if they win, great, and if not, it's still an achievement to get here. So either way, it's a good story for the Spudders.
All right, team that gets to start its journey close to home is the number 11 seed Columbia River boys, and the Rapids, they again had to win a loser out game to get into the state tournament, but here they are. They get to stay close to home and play number 14 Clover Park, but the fact that Columbia River was able to get back to the state tournament after graduating so many key players from last year's team that had that amazing run to 4th place in state, I wouldn't put it past them to punch their return ticket to Yakima with a win this weekend.
For sure. Yeah, they've kind of lived in this 9-16 range for a few years now, and they've been 2 for 2. They've played twice near home, so I think that, I think they have the history there, obviously. But like you said, they graduated 4 starters, and several of those guys were, longtime members of that program. This year's team, although they have 9 seniors, a lot of guys who are stepping into much larger roles, and I think continuity ultimately helped them, and a group that has played together for several years, and also their head coach, Mark Ganter, his third year as the varsity head coach, actually started as the C team coach the same year that this freshman class came through. So there's, a lot of continuity there between coaches and players. But yeah, it was no small feat for them to get back here. They had some growing pains earlier. They had kind of a tough loss early in the year to Washougal, lost one to Woodland, and that ultimately kind of turned out to be a turning point for them, where they kind of had to look in the mirror and go, like, do we want this or not? And they were able to do it. Obviously, having to play RA Long 3 times was tough for them, but I think, they grew from that. And I think the seeding was kind of right where it should have been for them. They had 7 losses, but a really tough schedule. And they've been here before, and even though it's a relatively new group, I think they're ready for this moment.
Well, 2 of those losses were narrow losses to RA Long, games that they absolutely could have won. RA Long undefeated, number 2 seed in the tournament. The Lumberjacks are kind of eyeing a state title run, but Columbia River can draw on those narrow losses, especially the game at home where that went to overtime, and say, like, we had them on the ropes. Who's to say we can't stack up with any team in 2A?
Yeah, that was the topic of conversation after their Winners State win Saturday against Ridgefield. Really no other team has played RA Long as tough as them, and they did it twice. So yeah, I think they should definitely hang their hat on that, and by now they're pretty experienced. So yeah, and I think as far as Saturday's game went, they're kind of a team that's, I think, historically been a pretty good shooting program. They only made 1 3-pointer in that game, but held Ridgefield to just 3 points in the third quarter. Really kind of hung their hat on defense. Only turned the ball over 4 times. So those are good, I think, encouraging signs that you can win in different ways this late in the season.
Definitely. Well, we'll just give a nod to the teams up north, RA Long, like we mentioned, and Mark Morris girls, which won the 2A Greater St. Helens League and reached the district title game. They get to start their state journeys at Kelso High, so they won the right to stay close to home. RA Long, like we mentioned, just so deep across the board. Josh Crane, kind of a do-everything type of player, 2A Greater St. Helens League Player of the Year. He's hoping to put that team on his back with a strong supporting cast, and I think everyone's really looking forward to a potential RA Long versus top seed Bremerton possibility. If that ends up, I mean, not saying it's guaranteed, they play these games for a reason, but
sure,
that would be just a really fascinating matchup if it is indeed for the state title.
Yeah, we saw that game in the state semis last year, and that was amazing to see. I haven't seen too many teams, put RA Long's defense kind of in a spot like that. But yeah, Bremerton's a great team, and they got the number 1 seed for a reason, even though their record isn't quite what RA Long's is, but they played a tough schedule. They're the defending state champs, so I think they've earned that. And yeah, hopefully we get to see those 2 teams show down in Yakima.
All right. One of the best stories, I think, in the area, not just in Class 1A, but across all classes, has been the reemergence of the Fort Vancouver boys. Trico League champions. They are headed or in state for the first time or the second time in 2 years after last year clinching their first state berth since 1990, and with a win on Friday night up at Camas against Nooksack Valley, the Trappers will clinch their first trip to a dome since 1990.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Trappers number 9 seed. I thought that was a little low, honestly, because they just rolled through the Trico League, they were tested in the district championship game against a very good Montesano team. But again, this Fort Vancouver team is playing with a lot of confidence. They just have, it seems like it's a different player every day that's stepping up and kind of playing a key role, whether that's scoring or facilitating. As a number 9 seed, this is kind of this debate that we get to with this 8 and 9.
Right.
Would you rather be a number 8 seed, be guaranteed a trip at least to the round of 12, but have to play the number 1 seed here in this opening round, a result that in the past has been pretty lopsided in a lot of cases, and go into the round of 12 on that note? Or would you rather
be the number 9 seed, play the number 16 seed, usually close to home, and go into the round of 12 with a bunch of confidence. And so that's the road that Fort Vancouver could take.
Yeah, no, that's always an interesting question. I think, it's so tough because we've seen it before where like it's an 8 or a 7 seed that just gets, it's kind of a blowout game in that protected game, and then it almost seems to kind of take the wind out of their sails going into the Dome. And for a team like Fort Vancouver, who's kind of relatively new at this, I mean, they did go to the regional round last year, but kind of to just not really quite have a lot of long experience to draw back on. I think it's good for them to get another home game and against a team that a Nooksack Valley team that was somewhat of a Cinderella in getting there. I think they're going to state for the first time in like 15 years. So I think this is ultimately a really good matchup for Fort Vancouver. I think just from a maybe you want to get a little bit more respect statewide and kind of get a higher seed. And honestly, I think they probably should have, being a district champion. But overall, I think it's a good outcome for them. And like you said, this is just a team at this point that's playing with some really good experience. And a lot of different guys to turn to. I think Jackson Appelt has been a great addition for them coming over from Hudson's Bay. But then they had most of their core kind of come back this year, and Leighton Livingood and Isaiah Barajas and Sam Howard and some other guys. So I think overall this is a good position for them to be in. And they booked a trip in December to that Sundome shootout. I think anytime you see a team book that, you kind of get the sense that they believe that they belong at the state tournament and the Sundome. And I asked Coach James Jones about that earlier in the year, and he said, I knew what we had coming back, so that's why we did this. And so they have that experience already, and they're confident in themselves. So that bodes well for them.
Well, and I think what also bodes well is the fact that they were tested in the district championship game against Montesano, because they didn't really have a lot of close ones in the Trico League, and so to go against another state-bound team under the district championship pressure, I think that shows that the Trappers can rise up and meet the moment.
Absolutely. And like the Trico League was pretty good, I think 2 through 4, especially this year too. And even though Fort had some good results against them, like there was some good competition in there, and we'll talk about in a second another team that got to state. So but for sure, I think and even in the district semifinals, playing Kalama for a game that was pretty close for a half. They've had some tighter games lately, and I think that's always good to get as you get deeper into the playoffs.
Definitely. You mentioned that other team from the Trico League, and that would be Kingsway Christian, who comes in as a number 15 seed. But don't put anything past the Knights, especially when you have a scorer like Jackson Lovato, who in the district tournament set a new single game scoring record with 41 points. And I think it was against Elma.
I think it was the game after that.
Oh, the game after that.
Maybe it was center.
It was. Correct. Thank you for correcting me on that. 41 points in a game. That's no joke. And if you get that kind of scoring output, you're going to be competitive. And they'll need that and more on the road against number 10 Cascade Christian of Puyallup. They'll face that loser out game on Saturday in Mount Tahoma, on Friday at Mount Tahoma in Tacoma. So Knights no stranger to the state playoffs over the past decade, but here they are again.
Yeah, it's been a 2-year drought for them. They were close in each of the last 2 years, but I think it was just overall a young team. Last year especially, I had a chance to talk to Jackson Lovato and Patrick Carney, their other dynamic scorer, earlier in the year, just kind of about, last year they didn't quite know how to win yet, those big games. And, they only graduated one senior, 11 players came back into the fold this year, which is pretty rare continuity at the high school level. So they're a pretty seasoned group at this point. And I think it was just good to see them finally get through. It's kind of been a little bit of not a full rebuild, but just kind of, as they enter into a new era with now third-year head coach Ty Johnson, who is assistant under David Harmeling, the longtime coach. So I think it's the Knights getting back to where they want to be, and they were another team that went to Yakima in December. So they're a team that wants to get there as well, obviously. And it should be an interesting matchup.
All right, let's wrap it up with the 1A girls and number 7 seed Seton Catholic. They're guaranteed a return trip to the Sun Dome after making their first ever trip as a program last year. I think they're going to draw on that experience wherever they end up, but their state tournament journey begins with a trip to Yakima, not to the Sun Dome, but to face number 2 seed Zilla in the opening round. But obviously the Cougars with a great player in the post with Riley Seamer, they just have so much returning experience for a roster that is pretty small. They only rotate about 6 or 7 players in, but those players have talent and experience.
If they started the year with only a varsity roster going 8 deep, obviously they had to pull a little bit more after point guard Madison Lee went out with a season-ending knee injury recently. I thought our Tim Martinez wrote a good story in their district semifinal win about them kind of, a little bit stumbling to the finish line just to get through with just being tired and injured and sick, but really good performance for them in the district championship to kind of get right and against a Montesano team, beating them in the district championship game for the 2nd straight year. And it's a little different without your point guard, obviously, but this is a senior class that's now been to state 4 years in a row, including this year and last year at the Dome, and this is a group that wants to make some noise this year. So even without Madison Lee, it's still a very formidable opponent, and they have the potential to make a run.
Well, and I think that's exactly it. This group, they've been together so long, they've made so much program history. They want to have their one shining moment, and whether that's a trophy or just ending on a high note, it would just be a great cap for this senior class.
Right, and this was a team that benefited last year from a protected game. They were, I think, the 6th seed and beat Zilla to go straight to the quarterfinal round and buy themselves more time at state. So they've done it before. Who says they can't do it again?
All right, and one last tip of the cap to Kingsway Christian girls who made it through the district tournament. The Knights are the number 16 seed. They get to make the long trip up north to Linden, where they will play number 9 seed Nooksack Valley. But again, anytime you punch your ticket to state, whether it's seed 1 through 16, that's program history, that's experience, that's one more trip in the bus or the van with the boys or the girls and making memories. So just tip of the cap to the Knights on getting that state berth, which has proved so elusive to so many teams that had it in their sight.
Right, yeah, and they before last year, I think it was a 6-year drought for them, and now they've reached state in back-to-back years, and this year was a little bit of a new group. They actually start 2 8th graders, remarkably, who are already making an impact at the varsity level. So, to do it in back-to-back years with kind of different rosters is impressive in itself, and obviously with 2 8th graders, the future is very bright for this program.
All right. Well, this weekend we'll be busy. Be sure, if you can't make it out to Camas or another gym to see any of the state action, follow us on 360 Preps. We'll be far and wide. You and Meg Wachnick will be up at Camas. I'm going to head north. Tim Martinez will also head north. So we'll be tracking down what games we can get to before we jet off to, in my case, Yakima, your case, Tacoma, for one of the best culminations of the high school season that we can imagine, the state basketball tournament.
Yeah, have a good weekend. I'm looking forward to it.
You too. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you the next time.